In 1990, we would get the sequel to Die Hard, Die Hard 2, Die Harder. So Die Hard 2 opens a year after the events of the first film. Again, it's Christmas Eve, and John McClane finds himself dealing with terrorists again. This time he's at Dulles International Airport in Washington waiting for his wife's plane to arrive. A group of terrorists led by Colonel Stewart, who are trying to free a notorious drug lord who is being flown into the airport to be put into custody, take over the airport and hold it hostage. Stars of the film are Bruce Willis as Lieutenant John McClane, you have Bonnie Bedelia as Holly McClane, William Atherton as Richard Thornburg, Reginald VelJohnson as Sergeant Al Franco Nero as Ramon Esperanza, you have William Sadler as Colonel Stewart, John Amos as Major Grant, Dennis Franz as Captain Carmine Lorenzo, and you have Art Evans as Leslie Barnes. The film was directed by Rennie Harlin, and the writers of the screenplay were Stephen E. D'Souza and Doug Richardson, and it's actually based on a book called 58 Minutes, written by Walter Wager. Now, for some reason, Die Hard 2 is looked down upon. A lot of people think it's an inferior sequel to the first film. Even John McTiernan was pretty vocal about not liking the script and thinking it was just a rehash, and that's why he chose not to return. But I think Rennie Harlin did a great job directing this film. This was his first directorial job after Nightmare on Elm Street 4. And again, Bruce Willis kills it in this as John McClane. Just an amazing actor in this. He just does a great job. You're really with him through the whole thing. You want him to succeed. There's a lot of tension because of his wife being in this plane that's going to run out of fuel. They're circling the airport, and he has to do everything he can to make sure that that her and the rest of these planes land safely. He's doing everything he can. You're just right there with him. And again, hats off to William Sadler. A lot of people don't talk about his portrayal of Colonel Stewart, but he is amazing in this film, and I think he's a chilling villain. Hans Gruber was really good, but Hans Gruber was more after money, and there was a greedy side to him, and also kind of a slick side to him. Whereas Colonel Stewart is all military. He's there to get Esperanza, and nothing is going to get in his way. Nothing. And I think that's the coldness that just comes across from William Sadler, and he does a tremendous job in this film. And I still think he's one of the most chilling villains in the Die Hard series. And there's some great action. The shootout in the terminal where they're trying to go to the Annex Skywalk, and that whole shootout scene is great. The scene where McClane tries to stop the plane from crashing into the runway, where he gets the two torches because the runway lights are all taken over by the Colonel Stewart's team, so the pilots can't see. The other scene is at the end where he's fighting Colonel Stewart on the wing of the plane. I mean, just great action. I just love this film. I mean, I don't love it as much as the first film, but I still think Die Hard 2 is just a great film, and I don't understand why it gets the hate that it does. It gets a 9.5 out of 10 for me. Love Die Hard 2. Just an amazing film. In 1995, we would see the return of John McClane in the second sequel to the original Die Hard. Die Hard with a Vengeance would reunite Bruce Willis with John McTiernan, who had directed the first film. This film would also feature the first time where McClane kind of had a sidekick with him in the form of Zeus, played by the great Sam Jackson. The focus of Die Hard with a Vengeance. The character of Simon is playing a game with John McClane. He has no idea who this guy is or why he has this grudge against him, but he's making John do all of these crazy things, or he's threatening to blow up areas of New York City. Sam Jackson's character of Zeus Carver intervenes in one of these scenarios, and because of this, Simon forces him to work with McClane to stop these bombs from happening. Now, Die Hard with a Vengeance has a very different feel than the first two films. This feels like its own movie, whereas Die Hard 2 really did feel like a continuation of Die Hard 1. the thing that initially was hard for me to grasp in this one is that McClane has left Holly. They've had a fight, and he's moved back to New York and is on the NYPD again and is no longer in LA. In the second film, he was LAPD. In this one, he's back to NYPD. They never really explain what happened. There is a line in the film where he tells Zeus that they got into a fight, and he never called her back, and he was in New York, which is kind of weird. Like, why was he back in New York? The only thing you can think of is maybe he went back there for friends or something like that, but they never really explained it, and I always had a small problem with that. I liked the Holly and John being together and all the things he's gone through for in the first two films. I kind of was disappointed that they weren't together in this film, but it's a small gripe. The other thing I didn't like was that he was such good friends with Al that Al is never mentioned again. And I missed Reginald VelJohnson in this film. But those are minor gripes aside. I really love Die Hard with a Vengeance, and I think the movie's grown on me more over the years than when I first saw it. I was a big fan of the first two films, and this film was very different compared to them. So when I first saw it, it was a little jarring for me, but this movie is just kick-ass, and this was right after Pulp Fiction had come out. It had made Sam Jackson a star. It also had kind of catapulted Bruce Willis' career back up after a number of years where he wasn't starring in such good films. But he was still amazing, just the films weren't received as well as some of the stuff he had done before. So yeah, this film is just amazing. There's a lot of great action. The fact that it's not in a enclosed area, it's actually the entire city of New York, and him and Zeus have to run around to prevent all these bombs from going off by solving these riddles. It was such a clever idea for a movie. Now, the cast of Die Hard with a Vengeance, of course, you have Bruce Willis as Lieutenant John McClane. You have Samuel L. Jackson as Zeus Carver. You have Jeremy Irons as Simon Gruber. You have Graham Greene as Joe Lambert. Colleen Camp as Connie Kowalski. Then you have Anthony Peck as Ricky Walsh. The movie was directed by John McTiernan, and it was written by Jonathan Hensley and Roderick Thorpe. And the original title of it was a different script that they worked the McClane character into. The original title of the script was Simon Says. Now, the relationship between the Zeus and McClane characters in this just make the movie. I mean, Sam Jackson and Bruce Willis have tremendous timing. The barbs that they throw at each other, and the whole racial tension was just great. And I mean, there's some great action in this film. The train, the bomb that goes off on the subway train, that's a great scene. The shootout that they have, there's one scene where they're driving, they have this shootout in the rain. The scene where McClane drives this truck into this tunnel, and he has to turn the truck around as this big water, they blow this dam, so all this water's racing towards him. Then there's also like the scene where they get this thing from this truck. It's like this wire. They hook it to a ship and they climb down onto the ship. I mean, there's just some great stuff in this film. Just tremendous. Like I said, every movie in the series, the action just gets they up the ante of the action in every new movie. Jeremy Irons is very good in this film too as Simon. He's probably one of my lesser favorite villains in the series. I liked him. I thought he was really good, but I've never been a huge fan of Jeremy Irons. I did like him in the film, but yeah, he's not my favorite. So yeah, again, tremendous film. I mean, despite my little gripes about Holly and Al not being in the film. I mean, Holly is mentioned, but Al isn't. But the fact that they're not in it, um, that was the only downside to me. I also thought it was kind of upsetting that after being a hero, in the first two films, that McClane is an alcoholic and just depressed, and, his wife and him are estranged. And, it's kind of a sad place to find the hero from the first two films. But again, that's how life is sometimes. So, like I said, the more that I watched it, the more I came to accept it. Again, a tremendous film. I love this film. I'd give it the same as I'd give Die Hard 2. I'd give it a 9.5. Love Die Hard with a Vengeance. Love watching this film. The dialogue is great, very sharply written, great direction by McTiernan. Again, Sam Jackson and Bruce Willis are just amazing in this film. Now, I'm sure, like many people, like many others, I didn't think there'd be another Die Hard after Die Hard with a Vengeance. Especially after 9/11. 6 years after Die Hard with a Vengeance came out, we would have the 9/11 attacks. And I just felt like that would probably change action films like the Die Hard films that dealt with terrorism and those such, types of stories. But I'm glad I was wrong. And in 2007, we would get the fourth Die Hard film, Live Free or Die Hard. The film was directed by Len Wiseman, who had previously done the Underworld films, and he was a tremendous fan of the original Die Hard films. Now, the cast of Live Free or Die Hard, you'd have Bruce Willis returning as John McClane. You have Timothy Olyphant as Thomas Gabriel. You have Justin Long as Matt Farrell. Maggie Q as Mai Lin. Cliff Curtis as FBI Director Miguel Bowman. Jonathan Sadowski as Trey. You'd have Kevin Smith as Frederick Warlock Kaludis. And of course, the beautiful Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Lucy Gennaro McClane. The screenplay was done by Mark Bomback, and the story was written by Mark Bomback and David Marconi. Now, Live Free or Die Hard is where some of the fans of the original three films started to turn. I mean, yes, they were happy that a new Die Hard film was coming out, but there were some things about it that sort of had people declaring that the John McClane they knew was dead, and that this new film was inferior to the three original films, which were considered classics at this point. Number one, the studio decided to release this film as a PG-13 film. At the time, R-rated action films were not what they were, as in terms of back in their heyday in the 80s and early 90s, where R-rated action was just standard. But then they started changing the way that action films were done. They were done a little bit differently, and this one was released PG-13, thinking it would do better at the box office than if it was been released R. The other thing was that McClane's character was a little bit different in this film. He had a clean-shaven head. Obviously, Bruce Willis has been losing his hair pretty much consistently since the 80s. At this point, I think McClane looks really cool with a bald, just completely shaven head. The other thing was that McClane did not smoke or drink in this film. For people that say stuff like that, McClane was never an alcoholic until Die Hard with a Vengeance. And in that movie, he was an alcoholic because he was depressed about what had happened with him and his wife. So, yeah, I understand that he didn't smoke in this one, but again, you're talking about a character that in the first film was in his early 30s, and this one he's in his early 50s. So people change. McClane quit smoking, big deal. Again, everybody acts like he was an alcoholic, and he wasn't an alcoholic through the other films. He was an alcoholic in Die Hard with a Vengeance. The other thing I think this film doesn't get credit for is that it had a great director. Everybody loves John McTiernan, but I think Len Wiseman was a tremendous director in this film, having previously just, done Underworld films. But he was a fan of Die Hard, just like me and a lot of other guys, same age, and he even says in the DVD commentary, he talks about a backyard Die Hard where he shot when he was younger. And I thought that was kind of cool that, he had been a fan even when he was a younger kid. And so he brings heart to this film. He actually brings a love, and you can see that just in the way that it's directed. You can tell that he really loves this series, and I think he gives it a tremendous amount of respect. And I don't think he gets enough respect for what he put into this film. Now, the thing that was different about this is that in the 12 years since the last Die Hard, computers had really, become big. And in this one, you have a cop who is an old school cop, John McClane, and he's taking on cyber terrorists that are trying to shut down the United States infrastructure. I thought that was really interesting story idea. Plus, he has the character of Matt Farrell, who is a computer, hacker kind of character, and Farrell have to band together in order to stop the terrorists in this film. The other thing I thought was great about Live Free or Die Hard is it brings another of McClane's family members into the mix. I always thought that was important, especially like in the first two films. He had the emotional hook. He had his family member there, but I was glad that they brought Lucy McClane, his daughter, into this one. And I thought Mary Elizabeth Winstead played her great. She was tough. She wasn't just a damsel in distress, and I thought that was great. And I also thought Timothy Olyphant as Thomas Gabriel was a great villain. He's probably my third favorite villain in the series. Just really thought he was tremendous in this film. Very eerie and very kind of cocky. Really fit in with the 21st century archetype. He was a real 21st century villain. I love Live Free or Die Hard. It's my favorite sequel. I like it as much as the original Die Hard. I love this film, and I don't know why some people hate on it so much. I really think people had a big problem with this film because it was rated PG-13 as well. And yeah, I wasn't happy that they were doing it because all the other films are rated R. I'm like, why are they doing that? Why are they messing with it? But really, when I watched the film, I didn't once go, oh, he's not swearing enough, or this isn't. I actually thought it was a pretty violent PG-13 film. And yes, the yippee ki is kind of muffled in the PG-13 version, but it didn't bother me because I thought it was kind of clever how they did it. Yeah, it didn't bother me. I think people just want to read into everything a little bit too much this day and age. Everything is scrutinized and everybody is cynical about everything, and I don't want to go see an action film and go, oh, that wouldn't really happen, oh, that wouldn't really happen, oh, that wouldn't really happen. It's like, how boring. I want to go and be taken away. I want to just see some action. Yes, probably a lot of the stuff that happened in the movie couldn't really happen, but it was fun and I enjoyed myself. I loved the story. I love that it's a bigger scope for a Die Hard film. Each one of them has gotten bigger. It's he has to save the world and pretty much in this story. And I love that it brought it to Washington D.C. and there was so many elements of this film that are just great. And I love the chemistry between Bruce Willis and Justin Long. I thought that was great, and I love the action, and I just think it's just a great film. There's nothing about Live Free or Die Hard that I don't like, and I watch this film quite a bit. And like I said, I give it a 10 out of 10. It's my favorite next to the original. I actually like it just as much as Die Hard 1. So yeah, there. And I grew up with the original series. I'm one of the OGs who loved the first one and the sequels, and I love the fourth one.